Hello everyone, this video will explain how to build a Raspberry Pi system and realize the remote control of the Raspberry Pi by a computer. Our outline is as follows. Before running the Raspberry Pi, we need to prepare some materials. In addition to the Raspberry Pi 4, we also need to prepare a USB mouse and keyboard, the monitor, and micro HDMI video cable. It should be noted that we should buy the micro HDMI cable, not classic HDMI cable, which is quite different from Raspberry Pi 3. The power cord with USB type interface, not micro USB interface, which is also different from Raspberry Pi 3. Micro SD card and the corresponding card reader. In addition, there is a heat sink. Since the power consumption of the Raspberry Pi 4 is greater than that of Raspberry Pi 3, in order to make the CPU work stably, we need to add a heat sink. Okay, after all the materials are ready, we can start. To run the Raspberry Pi, we need to install an operating system for the Raspberry Pi. The Linux system is more popular on the Raspberry Pi. The Raspbian mirror is used more frequently. It is a Linux system customized for Raspberry Pi. This is the official download URL of Raspbian. There are 3 image files. We choose this one because its function is relatively complete. Of course, the file will be larger. Click Download. This is the downloaded image file, which is in a compressed format. We need to decompress it. Here we use the free decompression software 7-zip to decompress it. 7-zip is a free decompression software. It can be downloaded from this website. Right-click 7-zip, unzip here. This is the unzipped file with the file extension image. It is relatively large. This image file cannot be copied directly to the SD card. It must be written to the SD card by special card writing software. There are many card writing software. We choose a more common software, Win32 Disk Imager. Win32 Disk Imager can be downloaded from this website. Insert the micro SD card into the card reader, and then insert the card reader into the computer. A card reader drive letter will also appear on the computer, and the drive letter on my computer is H drive. Run Win32 Disk Imager. You can see there is a drive letter H here. Select the image file just unzipped, and then click the button right. Double check if this disk is the SD card we just inserted. After clicking yes, it starts to write the image file to the micro SD card, which takes a long time. Okay, card writing is completed. Unplug the card reader and take out the micro SD card. Insert the micro SD card into the Raspberry Pi. Plug in the mouse, keyboard, and monitor of the Raspberry Pi. Since Wi-Fi is already on the Raspberry Pi board, here we use Wi-Fi to access the internet instead of the network cable. Connect the power to the Raspberry Pi and turn on the power. You can see that the Raspberry Pi has started. The green light on the board is blinking, and the character interface for Linux Startup will appear on the display. After a while, it will enter the Linux graphical interface. The graphical interface entered for the first time is a welcome page. This is how it is. It requires us to make some necessary configurations. Click Next. Set the country, interface language, and time zone. We need to set them according to our own situation. Click Next. The default superuser name is Pi. Here, we set the superuser password. Note that this password is very important. It is a bit similar to the password of the Windows administrator. You must not forget it. Next. We use default values for this interface. Next. This is a Wi-Fi setting interface. It will automatically list the Wi-Fi around. Let's take a look at this icon in the upper right corner, which is two red crosses, indicating that Wi-Fi is not connected yet. Okay? We choose to connect to the Wi-Fi hotspot in the drop-down list. Click Next. Enter the password for the Wi-Fi hotspot and click Next. If the password is correct, it will be connected to the Wi-Fi in a while. If the connection is successful, you can see the Wi-Fi icon. System upgrade. Since the image we downloaded was generally released some time ago, Raspbian has been continuously developed and improved, so we can upgrade the system to the latest state. This is very time-consuming. To save time, we skip it. Since the Raspberry Pi is a small card computer after all, its function is far less than that of a PC. It is not very convenient to develop on the Raspberry Pi. Therefore, in the development of the Raspberry Pi, it is generally developed on the PC, and the Raspberry Pi is operated through the terminal software on the PC. PC often operate the Raspberry Pi through SSH and VNC. Raspbian system does not enable SSH and VNC by default, so we need to manually enable them. Click the Raspberry Pi icon in the upper left corner. Preference, Raspberry Pi configuration. Switch to the interface page. Enable SSH and VNC. Click OK. To use SSH to access the Raspberry Pi, we need to know the IP address of the Raspberry Pi. There are two ways to know the IP address of the Raspberry Pi. The first method is relatively simple. Move the mouse to the Wi-Fi icon in the upper right corner. The IP address appears. Here it is 192.168.1.171. Another method is to click on the terminal icon to bring up a console window. Enter ifconfig. You can see that it lists the IP address of the Raspberry Pi. Here is the IP address. The IP address is automatically assigned to it by the router. In my case, its current IP address is 192.168.1.171. Different routers may have different addresses. Okay, we should write down this IP address because when using another computer's SSH terminal to access the Raspberry Pi, we need to enter the IP address. Remote SSH connection to the Raspberry Pi. Now, I will demonstrate the use of a PC to send instructions to the Raspberry Pi via the SSH. First of all, we need an SSH terminal software on our PC. Here, we choose a software called Moboxen. You can download a personal free version from this website. This is the main UI of Moboxen. Let me demonstrate the operation of SSH. Click Session. Click the SSH icon. Enter IP address of Raspberry Pi. Check Specify Username and enter the username Pi. Click OK. If you are asked to enter a password, enter the password we set earlier. When entering the password, nothing will be displayed on the screen. Press Enter after entering. The operation performed on this terminal is completely equivalent to the operation under the terminal of the Raspberry Pi, which is equivalent to moving the terminal of the Raspberry Pi to the computer. Let's try to enter a few instructions. List cd public. It worked. SFTP file transfer. In addition to SSH, we can also use this software to transfer files between the Raspberry Pi and the PC. Click the session. Click the SFTP icon. Note that not FTP. Just as before, enter the IP address and the username of the Raspberry Pi. OK. Enter the password. This is the file transfer UI. The window on the right lists the files on the Raspberry Pi side. The one on the left is the file directory on our local computer. We can easily upload and download files by dragging with the mouse. Okay, let's demonstrate the download of the file. Press the left button on the file name and drag to the left. You can see that the file has been downloaded. Similarly, we can also upload files by dragging. The upload was successful. We can also delete files on the Raspberry Pi through it. Right-click, delete. It worked. We install a free VNC client, VNC Viewer, on the PC. It can be downloaded from this URL. This is the main UI of VNC Viewer. Enter the IP address of the Raspberry Pi and press Enter. Enter the username and password. You can see the remote desktop of the Raspberry Pi, exactly the same as the desktop we saw on the Raspberry Pi. This is the most basic tutorial for Raspberry Pi development. Hope it's useful to you. Thank you all.